Welcome to the desert. What's the first thing that usually comes to your mind when you think about a desert? Do you imagine a vast, barren landscape of sand? Or maybe you think of a more rocky type of desert, like the Grand Canyon. Both are equally good interpretations, but it doesn't necessarily represent the desert as a whole. In truth, there are many types of deserts. There's stony deserts, badlands, sandy deserts, salt flats, you name it. In fact, there's even cold deserts. Like, I thought deserts were supposed to be warm, but hey, I guess there's cold deserts. Even in the most extreme conditions, life forms always find a way to survive. I mean, we've seen this time and time again with even places like the Mariana Trench. Deserts are no exception. In fact, they have fragile ecosystems and plenty of vegetation. Let's take a look at how they work. This is a map created by NASA that showcases where deserts are located in the world. As you can see, there are several deserts located in the Great Basin, the Sahara, the Middle East, and Asia, as well as many other locations. You'd be surprised to find that roughly 1/3 of the Earth's entire land surface is deserts. Anyways, now that we know where deserts are, let's talk about what deserts are. Deserts are hot and dry climates, typically unsuitable for many animals. As mentioned before, deserts can come in many different landscapes and forms, from hot, dry deserts to cold deserts to basins. Some landscapes are more extreme, while others are more lush and habitable. But regardless, deserts usually receive fewer than 10 inches of precipitation a year, with some deserts barely receiving a single inch of precipitation. This is a climograph, or in other terms, a graph that showcases the precipitation in an area. As you can see, Cairo, Egypt is barely receiving half an inch of rain in its good months in January and December. That's crazy! Barely half an inch! Now, I know this may sound crazy, but despite this lack of precipitation, there's still somehow ecosystems that manage to survive within these harsh habitats. Let's take a look at some plants that grow in the desert. I'm sure we've all heard of the cactus before. The tall, green, prickly plant that has many spines dangerous to touch. It's a majestic life form that's typically associated with deserts, but it can also be found in grasslands and tropical rainforests. It provides food and water for many desert animals such as camels, desert tortoises, and jackrabbits. There are many similar plants that also grow in the desert, such as agave and desert sages. Both plants contribute shelter and habitat for wildlife, contributing to desert ecosystems. Now, that may sound all fine and dandy, but there's a real mystery about these plants that we have yet to discuss. How do these plants survive in the desert despite the lack of rain? If you're wondering why most desert plants typically take the form of a cactus, it isn't coincidental. Many desert plants have a form of succulence, or water storage in their leaves. Desert plants store water in their leaves, allowing plants to withstand long periods of drought. Additionally, desert plants have adapted many physical features that help them survive the arid conditions. Some plants evolved to use a sort of waxy coating called cuticles, I hope I'm saying that right, to reduce water loss. Many desert plants also have specialized root systems that allow them to access water underground and absorb surface moisture. Dude, you won't believe how long that took me to say, oh my god. Anyways, all that you really need to know is that a lot of plants need to conserve water, and so they have these weird adaptations that allow them to conserve water better. Alright, we've taken a look at some desert plants, but now let's look at what actually eats those plants. We're talking about desert animals. This is a camel, one of humanity's best desert travelers. It's groovin'. Have you ever wondered why camels have humps? Well, the humps actually have a purpose. They're actually used to store fat for energy, allowing them to survive long periods of dehydration. Similarly to desert tortoises, which we'll get to in a second, camels eat cactus, although they usually prefer other forms of desert vegetation, such as shrubs and grass. This is the desert tortoise, which is a really interesting case of a desert animal surviving in its ecosystem. You see, desert tortoises spend most of their time in cool underground burrows, gaining water from plants and conserving water in its large bladder. Now, despite how slow they are, desert tortoises have adapted to conserve water, relying on local plants such as cactus for nutrition. So, despite their slow walking, they actually have a really good way to survive. Now, for our final animal, rattlesnakes. Yes, you heard me right, snakes. Content warning for all of you snake phobes. This is a rattlesnake. Unlike desert tortoises and camels, rattlesnakes rely on small mice, rabbits, and other small critters to survive. They also harvest rainwater on their scales, conserving water for long periods of drought. This seems consistent with many other desert animals such as desert tortoises. Obviously not the scales part, but they've evolved to conserve water, which is really interesting. Well, you've made it to the end of the video. Overall, the desert has a very fragile yet strong ecosystem. Desert plants and animals all share a clear and distinct role with one another, carefully supporting each other despite the extreme nature of the environment. So, whenever you think of a desert, just know that it isn't as empty and barren as you may think. If you really look deep enough, deserts are unique and interesting ecosystems containing many different animals and plants. That's all. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.